Today, we answer some questions because there's a lot of them. If you missed it, a few days ago, the brand new Garmin Fenix 7 and the Epix Gen 2 were announced from Garmin, and I actually posted a couple of videos on launch day about those two devices, and boy, did those videos get a lot of views and a lot of comments with a lot of questions. So I went ahead and I went through every single comment. There are thousands of them. It took a while, and I picked out the most frequently asked questions that we can kind of cover in this video. I'll take my best stab at them. I'm not a professional, or maybe I am. Am I a professional? I don't know. And maybe it will help you in your purchasing decision when it comes to the Fenix 7 or the Epix Gen 2. Before we dive into these questions, if you find this video helpful or fun or anything, make sure you give me a thumbs up because it really helps out the channel. And go ahead and subscribe down below because I have a ton more videos coming up about the Epix and the Fenix 7, and I'm going to be comparing them against the Corus Vertex 2 and the Apple Watch and the Garmin Venu 2 Plus. There are a lot of videos coming all about these devices, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss them. And with that, let's get into the first question. Does the thicker solar ring on the Garmin Fenix 7 make the display smaller? The quick answer to that is no. I actually saw this question a surprising amount in the comments. Basically, Garmin increased the size of the solar ring around the perimeter of the watch on the Fenix 7 Solar and Sapphire Solar. So from a glance, it actually looks like the display shrunk a little bit to make room for that thicker solar band that's more efficient. That's simply not the case. So to get around that, what Garmin did was they actually shrunk the bezel, like the actual metal part of the bezel around the perimeter of the watch, to make room for that thicker solar ring. So if you buy a Garmin Fenix 7S, you're still going to get a 1.2-inch display, and if you bump up to the Fenix 7X, you will still get a 1.4-inch display. That hasn't changed. What's the difference between the base models on the Epix and Fenix and the Sapphire models? Okay, so this is a little bit confusing because at a glance, you don't really see all the differences. When you hear the word Sapphire, you just think maybe the display just has a sapphire lens instead of the Gorilla Glass, which is true, but there are a couple of other changes on the Sapphire models. So in terms of internal storage, the base model has 16 gigabytes of storage, while the Sapphire model gets 32 gigabytes of storage. Now the difference between 16 and 32 gigabytes is obviously there's double the amount of space in the Sapphire model, but honestly, 16 gigabytes is still enough for most people unless you're really loading a ton of music onto your watch, which I don't personally do, but maybe you do. But the other benefit to the 32 gigabyte model in the Sapphire version is that you actually have the maps pre-installed when you take the device out of the box because there's enough storage for an entire global map on the watch. Whereas if you go with the base model, it only has 16 gigabytes of storage. You have to actually download the map once you take it out of the box. You connect your watch to Wi-Fi, it downloads the map for your region, so you're not getting a global map, but you don't really need that unless you're always traveling around the world. And then the final difference with the Sapphire model is that it has multi-frequency GPS mode, which the base model and Solar models don't have. The top level Sapphire model has multi-frequency mode that allows you to use two frequencies to connect to more satellites, and that actually gives you a more accurate position at the expense of a little bit of battery life. Now, is it worth it to step up to the Sapphire model for that multi-frequency mode? In my testing so far, it is more accurate, but only by a smidge, and it's only going to depend if you're in a really demanding environment like a slot canyon or in a city next to skyscrapers. Really, if you're going to need that mode, for most people, you'll be fine with the base model or Solar model, and I do have a deep dive video on GPS accuracy coming up, so stay tuned for that. The next question I saw in the comments a lot was, how does the Fenix 7's display compare to the Fenix 6? This is something I saw mentioned a lot because there are a lot of concerns that that issue we saw on the Fenix 6 where there was some washed out versions, like it was kind of a bluish display, that would occur on the Fenix 7. I'm happy to report that in the samples that I actually had to send back my loaner units, but the ones that I did have, none of them seem to have that issue where it's completely washed out or really blue. So hopefully that's something of the past. Again, this is just in the sample size. I had 3 of them, and all 3 of them look pretty good. But we'll have to see when more people get their hands on these, how they look like overall. That's just my experience so far. So take that for what it's worth. It may not be an issue anymore. It might be, I don't really know. And on the topic of displays, I got a ton of questions about the new Epix display because it is that vibrant AMOLED display. So we're gonna go through those now. The first question I had by a lot of people was, can you turn the Epix background white, because on the Garmin Fenix 6 and the Garmin Fenix 7, you can actually switch the background to your watch face and in your activity profiles to a white background, and a lot of people do prefer that. As you can see on my Garmin Fenix 6 here, if I dive into the settings on my watch face, I can scroll down and you can see accent color and then background color, and within there I can actually toggle it black or white. However, on the Garmin Epix, if we dive into the same watch face settings and scroll down, you can see the same selections. There's accent color, but below that, there's no background color. And the same thing goes for activity profiles. You cannot make the backgrounds in your activities white. This functionality is actually for a good reason though, because if you think of how an AMOLED display works, you have to think of this display as like thousands of little light bulbs. Basically, there's thousands of little diodes, microscopic ones that you can't see with the human eye on this display. And the way these work is basically when they're black, they're essentially turned off. So they're not consuming any power. And when they're white, they're turned on and consuming lots of power. So if you turn the background on the watch face white and you had it on always on display mode, this watch would drain battery like crazy. It probably wouldn't even get through a day. And not only that, it would probably be really annoying to have on your wrist because it would look like a flashlight throughout the day. Now, it's not to say it's impossible to have a white watch face. I'm sure a third-party developer will make one, but I wouldn't install it because, like I said, you're gonna just burn through battery life like crazy, and it's probably not practical or worth it. Another question I got about the Garmin Epix display a lot in the comments was actually what it's like in direct sunlight. Can you actually see this thing in direct sunlight? And yes, you can see it very clearly in direct sunlight, and it's really interesting. So I'd say in like 99 or like 98% of the time, the Garmin Epix is easier to read in direct sunlight as compared to a transflective display like the Fenix 6 I have here. There are, however, very rare circumstances where the Garmin Fenix 6 and the Garmin Fenix 7 are a little bit easier to read in direct sunlight. And that's only when the sun is actually behind your shoulder, shining down on your wrist, and the sun is actually perpendicular to the watch. Like if you're indoors or in the shade, like in the sunlight, for the most part, the Epix will be more readable and it does look better. The next question I got a lot of was, will the Fenix 6 get a firmware update to bring it up to date with the Epix and the Fenix 7? This is something I don't know, and historically, the way Garmin has worked is they don't typically add new features to older devices. So I don't know if I'd expect the new stamina widget to roll back or the sleep mode or any of those things. I'm not really sure what they'll roll back. I'd say maybe some of the things might roll back, like maybe the ability to customize the watch from your phone. And that would be really nice to see because that's a great feature. But yeah, I don't really know. I'm only crossing my fingers that they do something because it would feel kind of unfortunate if they don't bring back any of the features. The next question I saw a lot of is about the watch bands on the new Fenix 6 and Fenix 7. Are they compatible with the older Garmin Fenix 6 or the 6X and the 945 LTE, all of those bands? Well, yes and no. This is a weird observation I just noticed yesterday, but I've noticed that if you remove the Quick Fit band on the Epix and the Fenix 7, that the pin inside here that holds the band on is not removable. Now in the past, on the Garmin Fenix 6 I have here, there's actually a little spring mechanism on the pin so you can actually remove the entire pin and the band. If you only use quick fit bands that come on the Epix and the Fenix 7, you won't even care about this because all of the older quick fit bands from the Fenix 6 and the 945 and all of the third-party ones sold on Amazon, those will still work on the Fenix 7 and Epix. However, if you have a custom band like a leather band or a titanium band or something that you like using on these 22mm band widths, they won't work on this because you can't remove the pin unless there's a trick on getting the pin out, because I can't figure it out. And if you know that trick, let me know in the comments down below because I would love to hear from you. The next question is, how long does it take the Epix and Fenix 7 to charge? I did some testing to figure out how long it takes to charge, and about 10 minutes gives you about 16% of battery life. So that works out to like a little over an hour will get you to 100% from zero. And that's basically the same on the Garmin Fenix 6, so I don't think there's any improvements on the Fenix 7. It's about an hour to charge these from 0 to 100%. Okay, final question that I'm going to cover in this video. A lot of people in the comments asked why the Garmin Epix and the Fenix 7 looks bigger than the Garmin Fenix 6, even though they're both supposed to be the same size at 47mm. And honestly, I'm looking at them on a display right now with that top-down camera, and I tend to agree that at a glance, the Epix does look a little bit bigger than the Fenix 6, and that's kind of weird. So for the sake of science, we're going to go ahead and measure both watches. All right, so on the Epix, I'm getting 48.42mm, which is a little bigger than their claimed 47mm. Let's get the Fenix 6 now. And on the Fenix 6 measured the same way, I'm getting 47.02 0.71 millimeters. So the Epix does appear to be a smidge bigger. You know, on the wrist, they actually feel exactly the same. So there's not really a huge size difference, but it seems like the Epix might be like a fraction of a millimeter bigger than the Fenix 6. And that applies to the Fenix 7 too, because it has the same case size as the Epix. So just keep that in mind. That is all I've got for this one. I hope I helped answer some of the questions you might have. And if you've got more questions or you want to see more comparison videos with the Epix and the Fenix 7, let me know down below, because man, I have so many videos coming up about these devices, comparing them to other devices out there and all the features. I'm gonna do a deep dive on GPS accuracy and heart rate accuracy and comparing them to all the major flagship devices. So stay tuned for all of that. And yeah, that's all I've got. I'm gonna see you next time. Bye.